Welcome to the Bible Show on evolutionpop.com. I'm your host, Jeff Hudson. This is the Bible Show where we read what the Bible actually says, not what your pastor said, not the common beliefs of Christianity. What does the Bible actually say? Not what you heard, not what you think. We read it straight from the book. Today's lesson, into Egypt again with ships. Into Egypt again with ships. I was thinking about doing this lesson for a while. I want to take a little bit of a different spin on it. There's some things that are going to be the same that you're going to get from all of the Sabbath day churches. And there's some stuff that's just, common. But I want to try and keep it under an hour. I don't think so, but yeah, we'll try, okay? And we're going to go over some things about what does this into Egypt again with ships actually means. What's the into Egypt again? Actually, that means bondage. What about with ships? Well, they had ships back in those days, but what does ships have to do with going back to Egypt? Well, we'll find out. We're going to start this lesson out in Leviticus chapter 22. Leviticus chapter 22, we're going to read verses 1 and 2. And then we're going to skip down to 31. Into Egypt again with ships. And we're going to get to what this is actually talking about. It's talking about bondage and who are the real Israelites. Okay, Leviticus 22, verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and to his sons, that they separate themselves from the holy things of the children of Israel, and that they profane not my holy name in those things which they hallow unto me. I am the Lord. Now let's skip down to 31. I just want to let you know that the Lord is speaking to Moses and he's talking to Aaron. Now let's get down to verse 31. Verse 31. All the way down to verse 31. We'll read 31 through 33. 31. Therefore shall ye keep my commandments and do them. I am the Lord. Neither shall ye profane my holy name, but I will be hallowed among the children of Israel. I am the Lord which hallow you, that brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord. So into Egypt again is talking about bondage. The Lord brought the Israelites out of Egypt. And he's going to mention that a few times here. Verse 33, that brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord. Brought you out of the land of Egypt, brought you out of bondage. And we're going to see that this is talking about bringing you out of bondage. Let's go to Leviticus chapter 25. Leviticus 25, we're going to read one verse, verse 38. Leviticus 25, verse 38. And it says, I am the Lord your God, which brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, to give you the land of Canaan, and to be your God. God mentions it again. I am the Lord your God, which brought you forth out of the land of Egypt. Why is it important that the Israelites were brought out of the land of Egypt? Because they were in bondage in Egypt. So what does the title, into Egypt again with ships, mean? That means going back into bondage. Going back into bondage, they're gonna, whoever's going to take you back into bondage is going to use some ships to get you there. Now, who did that happen to? Who's the only people in the history of this world that we know about that happened to? Those are the Israelites. Let's go to Numbers, the book of Numbers, and we're going to go to verse 15 and read one verse. Numbers, verse 15. We're going to read chapter 15. Numbers chapter 15, verse 41. Numbers chapter 15, verse 41. And it says, I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord your God. There it is again. Brought you out of the land of Egypt. Now let's get a little bit more detailed here. Let's get a more detail. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah here. Let's find out what this out of Egypt is really talking about. Let's get to where it says out of bondage. Jeremiah chapter 34. Book of Jeremiah chapter 34. And we're going to pick it up. I put the wrong chapter in there. 34. And we're going to pick it up at verse 13. Jeremiah 34, we're going to read 13 and 14. Jeremiah 34 and 13. Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, I made a covenant with your fathers in the day that I brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondmen. Jeremiah chapter 34, verse 13. Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, I made a covenant with you. I made a covenant with your fathers in the day that I brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondmen, saying, at the end of 7 years, let ye go every man his brother in Hebrew, which hath been sold unto thee. And when he have served these 6 years, thou shalt let him go free from thee. For your fathers hearken not unto me, neither incline their ear. Now that's a sin then. So this is two things here. We found out that Egypt is talking about the house of bondmen, and we also see that Israel's starting to sin here. They didn't know, they're not obeying what the Lord says. So there you go. I want to make the comparison there, or bring it together, that and a lot of times in the Bible when it's talking about Egypt, bringing you out of Egypt, bringing Israel out of Egypt, they're talking about bringing Israel out of bondage. So now let's look up bondmen, because we read in 13 it said out of the house of bondmen. What does bondmen mean? Well, I went to the trusty dusty Merriam Webster Dictionary and I looked up bondmen. And the definition of bondmen in the Merriam Webster Dictionary: bondmen, slave, serf, chattel, thrall. That's what bondmen means. Slave, serf, chattel, thrall. So I went and looked up. Well, we know what a slave is, right? So I looked up serf. What's a serf? Merriam Webster Dictionary, serf. A member of a servile feudal class bound to the land and subject to the will of its owner. That's a serf. Sounds kind of like a slave to me. Merriam Webster Dictionary, what is chattel? Chattel. You heard the term chattel slavery? Bondman, chattel. Here's what chattel means. An item of tangible, movable, or immovable property, except real estate and things such as buildings, connected with real property. A slave, a bondman. That's what chattel is. So, who were bondmen in Egypt? The Israelites. What people were taken into captivity in ships throughout the entire, not only just the Western hemisphere, but all over the world? What people is that? Those are the Israelites. That's what we read, right? Let's keep going. I also looked up thrall. 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 Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Thrall. A state of servitude or submission. A state of complete absorption. A servant. Slave. Bondman. Serf. A person in moral or mental servitude. Who does that sound like? Who does that sound like? I'm not mentioning any names, mentioning any races, mentioning any nationalities. You sum it up for me. Those are the Israelites, according to the Bible. Let's go to Deuteronomy. Well, before we get to Deuteronomy, we know we're going to go to Deuteronomy 28. Everybody knows. Even people are like, they're going to Deuteronomy 28 again. Yeah, there we go. But before we go there, let's go to Acts. Let's go to Acts chapter 7. And let's read about what Stephen was talking about. We all know the story of Stephen. Well, maybe we don't know. Stephen was in the New Testament, in the book of Acts. He was one of the new disciples. Well, not really he wasn't one of the apostles, but he was a disciple of Christ after Christ had died. It might have been before. But he was having a conversation with some other non-believers of Jesus Christ. And they didn't like what he was talking about. He was cutting them to the core, so they made some lies about him and got him kind of like arrested. And during his questioning, he went through the history of the Israelites. So go to Acts chapter 7 and read the whole thing. We're not going to read the whole thing. We're going to read a lot of it. Well, some of it. We're going to do some skipping. We don't have a whole lot of time. But go to Acts chapter 7 and read this whole story of, not the whole story, but what happened with Stephen here and how he gives a complete rundown and summarized rundown of what happened with the Israelites. Acts chapter 7. We're going to pick it up at chapter 2. We're going to pick it up at verse 2, and we're going to skip around, but we're going to get the gist of it, though. Acts chapter 7, we're going to start at verse 2. This is Stephen talking to the rest of the Israelites that are questioning them, all right? verse 2. And he said, this is Stephen, and he said, men, brethren, and fathers, hearken. The God of glory appeared unto our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dealt in Sharan. Sharan, right? Now let's skip down to verse 6. Verse 6. And God spake on this wise, that his seed, Abraham's seed, should sojourn in a strange land, and that they should bring them into bondage, and entreat them evil 400 years. Now he's talking about when the Israelites went into Egypt and became bondmen, where they went into bondage in Egypt, and they were there for 430 years. Verse 8. Let's get down to verse 8. Then read 8 through 10. And he gave him the covenant of circumcision. So God gave Abraham the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham begat Isaac and circumcised him the 8th day. And Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat the 12 patriarchs, meaning the 12 tribes of Israel. I can't name them all, but Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Asher, Gad, Naphtali, Joseph, Benjamin, Dan. I'm forgetting somebody. Zephaniah. I can't remember. Anyway, I think I did okay. Can you name them? You probably can, but okay, I'm not going to worry about it. Let's skip down. Skip down to, let's keep reading. We'll start at 8 again, 8 through 10. And he gave him the covenant of circumcision, and so Abraham begat Isaac, and circumcised him the 8th day, and Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat the 12 patriarchs, 12 tribes of Israel. Verse 9. And the patriarchs moved with envy, sold Joseph into Egypt. Remember that? They sold Joseph into Egypt, but God was with them. They first sold him to some Arabs. So your first slave owner were Arabs. Joseph was sold to Arabs, and the Arabs sold him to the Hamites, Egyptians. The Egyptians are in the land of Ham. So your second slaveholder was the Egyptians, were the Hamites. Verse 10. But God was with him and delivered him out of all his afflictions, and gave him favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And he made him governor over Egypt and all his house, right? So Joseph found favor with Pharaoh, and he became appointed the leader of the second in command only unto Pharaoh over all of Egypt. It's a good thing, right? Here's just like one of the members of the 12 tribes, one of the forefathers of the 12 tribes, Joseph, is second in command to Pharaoh of all of Egypt. Looks like the Israelites had a good deal in Egypt. Well, they did for a while, but then it changed. Let's get down to verse 14. Verse 14. Verse 14. Then sent Joseph and called his father Jacob to him, and all his kindred, 70 souls. That's 70, 85, or 60, 75, 75 souls, 75 people. So when the Israelites, Joseph, Jacob, his father, all his brethren, all their wives and children, when they all first came to Egypt, it was 75 of them. 75. That's what 75 means. 75. Verse 15. So Jacob went down into Egypt and died, he and our fathers. Now this is still Stephen talking about the summarizing the history of the Israelites up to this point. Let's get down to verse 17. Verse 17. 17 through 23. 17. But when the time of the promise drew nigh, which God had sworn to Abraham, the people grew and multiplied in Egypt. The Israelites grew. They grew from 75 to a great multitude of people, right? So if it was only 12 males, including Jacob, let's go with the 12 children of Jacob. 12, right? And there was 75 of them in all, and they grew into a great multitude. Who were their wives? And if they're in the daughters, who were their husbands? It seems to me it must have been the Egyptians. Unless they went outside of Egypt somewhere and found somebody. Doesn't say, but this is just me talking, okay? It doesn't say. Verse 18. Well, let's finish 17. And multiplied in Egypt. Verse 18. Till another king arose, which knew not Joseph. Uh-oh. Now, this is when the tide gets to start turning. This is when it starts changing. Verse 19. The same dealt subtly with our kindred and evil entreated our fathers. We're going to go back to verse 17 through 23. Acts chapter 7, verse 17 through 23. 17. But when the time of the promise drew nigh, which God had sworn to Abraham, the people grew and multiplied in Egypt, till another king arose, which knew not Joseph. Now, this is where the Israelites are going to go into bondage, because this king doesn't know who Joseph was. Now, how can that be? How can that be? Joseph was the second over all of Egypt, but only under Pharaoh, right? And they knew that the Israelites were there in the land of Goshen. How can this Pharaoh not know who Joseph was? Don't they keep records? Of course they do. They got hieroglyphics, right? We know who some of the kings were. We know who King Tut is. How come this king, till another king arose, which knew not Joseph? Verse 19. The same dwelt subtly with our kindred, and evil entreated our fathers. So this is when they started getting treated badly. So that they cast out their young children to the end they might not live. So they started killing the male children of the Israelites. The Egyptians did. Verse 20. In which time Moses was born and was exceeding fair, and nourished up in his father's house 3 months. And when he was cast out, okay, we know the story of Moses. He grew up in Pharaoh's house until he killed an Egyptian, and Pharaoh found out about it and found out he was a Hebrew and sought to kill him. So that's when Moses ran away. All right, verse 20. Well, I don't know if he found out he was a Hebrew, but he found out that he killed an Egyptian, and that was it. Verse 21. And when he was cast out, Moses was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter, this is when Pharaoh's daughter takes him up. But we know the story of Moses. He still gets cast out. He runs away after he kills an Egyptian. But 21. And when he was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter took him up and nourished him for her own son. So Moses' mother, since they were killing the male children, she kept him for 3 months. But then she put him in a manger, or in a little basket, an ark, right? Put him in the Nile River, and Pharaoh's daughter found him and raised him up as her own son. Pharaoh's daughter raised up Moses as her own son. But she used Moses' mother to raise him until he was weaned, I guess, or got to a certain age. Then she gave him to Pharaoh. So Moses' mother raised him, not like in the movie where he didn't know who he was. Moses knew he was a Hebrew. He knew that he was a Hebrew because he was raised by his own mother, just given to Pharaoh's daughter later on. All right? So she just got saved, that's all. So it's not like the movie where he didn't know. And it doesn't say that he had a brother named Ramses. No, brother Key was named Ramses. No, I didn't say any of that. Anyway, 22. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and was mighty in words and in deeds. And when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel. See, so he knew who he was. Verse 23, and when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart, I mean his mind, to visit his brethren, the children of Israel. So he knew that he was a Hebrew Israelite. He's going to visit his people. Let's skip down to verse 29. Verse 29. So he was 40 years old when he first visited. And then he saw that the Hebrews smiting, the Egyptians smiting the Hebrews, so he killed them. Then he went out the next day and saw the Hebrews smiting the Hebrew. And he's like, hey, brothers, what y'all doing? And he was like, what, you going to kill me like you killed that Egyptian? So he ran. All right, so now he's gone. I'll skip down to verse 29. Verse 29. Then fled Moses at this saying, like the guy said, what, you going to kill me like the Egyptians? Then fled Moses at this saying, and was a stranger in the land of Midian, where he begat 2 sons. I'm going to read 29 and 30. Verse 30. And when 40 years were expired, that's another 40 years. So he was 80 years old. He was 80 years old when he saw the flaming fire and went back to Egypt. And when 40 years were expired, there appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai an angel of the Lord in the flame of fire in a bush. So he was 80 years old when he went back. He's an old dude, right? He lived a little longer than that to get the children out of to lead the children out of Egypt, and they were in the wilderness for another 40 years. So that's what? 4, 8, 12 is 120 years old in the wilderness. They were in the wilderness 40 years. He was 40 years old when he left Egypt. He was 40 years old when he went back to Egypt, and they were in the wilderness 40 years. That's 120. How old did Moses live to be? Let's get down to verse 33. Verse 33. Then said the Lord to him, to Moses, put off thy shoes from thy feet, for the place where thou standest is holy ground. We're going to read 33 and 34. 34, and this is God talking. I have seen the affliction of my people, which is in Egypt. The Israelites were being afflicted in Egypt. And I have heard their groaning and have come down to deliver them. And now come, I will send thee into Egypt. So God sends Moses into Egypt to free the Israelites. Now, let's go to Deuteronomy 28. Now, Stephen read this whole thing down. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28 and read some of the curses of the Israelites, and you tell me who they fit. You're just trying to make a point here who this into Egypt again with ships is talking about. Deuteronomy 28, we're going to read 1 and 2, and then we're going to skip around, okay? Got a lot of skipping to do. It's 68 verses in Deuteronomy 28. We're not going to read all of them. We're going to read a few, okay? Deuteronomy 28, verse 1. Verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Now this is God. Well, this is Moses. Well, this is God telling the people of Israel, giving them the curses or the blessings. Verse 1 again. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. Verse 2. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. So basically he's saying, okay, listen to me, keep my commandments, do what I tell you, you'll get all these blessings. And he goes down and gives like a bunch of blessings. On the flip side, if you don't listen to what the God says, if you don't keep his commandments and you go against him, you're going to get the curses. Let's go to the curses. Skip down to verse 15. Verse 15. Verse 15. Deuteronomy 28, verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. See, God's going to give you the blessings, or he's going to give you the curses. You can't just say, I'm blessed, I'm blessed, I'm blessed. No. Are you doing what God says to do? Well, if you're not, you're going to get the curses. You know, you can't just ignore them. They're in the book. They're in the scriptures. You carry the book with you, you read it. Do you read it? Well, this is what it's saying. It's not just blessings all the time. If you don't do what God commands, you're going to get the curses. And people don't want to realize that. They don't want to pay attention to that. Let's get down to verse 20. Verse 20. Here's some of the curses. We're going to read a few, not all of them. I got a bunch written here. Maybe we'll skip some, maybe not. Verse 20. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. Let's get down to verse 25. 25 and 26. 25. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them. It shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. Now, what people has been removed from their homeland into all the kingdoms of the earth? What people is that? Not migrated there on their own, but were taken there as captives. Verse 26. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. All right, so you remember when the lynchings where they would just lynch somebody and they just be hanging there? Who did that happen to? They were just hung up there on the tree, and no one came to cut you down. They just left you up there. And the birds came and picked your eyes out and picked your nose off. And the bear came and ate your foot. I don't know. Let's go to verse 29. Skip down to verse 29. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, as a people who hasn't prospered. And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore. Who's oppressed and spoiled evermore? And no man shall save thee. Has anybody been able to save this people? We got a bunch of people that's tried. Verse 32. Verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. Whose children were just taken from them and given to someone else, there's nothing you can do about it. Verse 37. 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee. Who's an astonishment? Who's a proverb and a byword? We got a different nickname for every 10 years it changes. No nationality. Verse 45. 45 and 46. Verse 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Remember, God said, keep my commandments and do what I tell you, and you get blessed. Don't keep my commandments, and you get all these curses. So obviously, these people didn't keep the commandments, because they got the curses. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Upon thy seed forever. It's a long time. Let's get on to verse 48. Verse 48. Wherefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in wants, which means lack of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck. Now that's literal. Who has literally had a yoke of iron on their neck so they couldn't escape? Until he have destroyed thee. Let's get down to verse 53. Verse 53. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body. We can go to the book of Lamentations and read where the Israelites became cannibals. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters. You got to eat your kids because you got no food. Which the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege. Siege means you got surrounded, you can't get out, nothing to get in, so all your food's gone. What are you going to eat? Which the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. You can go read about when Rome in 70 AD conquered Egypt. They put them in a siege, and they were all just dead people in there. Verse 59. We're getting there. Verse 59. Then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sickness, and of long continuance. 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. So what people have been scattered all over? They have no nation of their own. They're just scattered all over the world. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Who serve other gods? Every god but the true God of Israel. 66, verse 66. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee. What happens when the police pull up? It's like, uh-oh, you don't know if you're going to make it home. And thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. Verse 68. And this is where the title comes from. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. So go back into bondage again, but this time you're gonna be done on ships. Now, what people, once again, were put in captivity, taken on ships, brought to some other land, scattered all over, and sold. And if children were taken away from them, there's nothing they can do about it. What people did that happen to? Those are the Israelites. 6:8. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. You're not going to see the land of Israel again. Have anybody been, have this people been back to Israel to live, to their own land, to rule it? No. Has anybody come to get this people out of bondage? No. You were set free in the land that you were in, you were taken captive to. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there you're not going to see your land anymore again. Not going to see the land of Israel anymore. Not till the Lord Jesus comes back. Not to have your own country. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and for bondwomen. Now, what people were captured, put on ships, sold to other nations for bondmen and bondwomen? We read what the definition of bondmen are, right? Slaves. Who did that happen to? Those are the Israelites. And no man shall buy you. The buy in this is no one's going to come back and save you. Now, some people have tried. And things have gotten a little bit better. This is the year 2020. It's a little bit better, right? So we're getting a better idea of who the children of Israelites are and what this into Egypt again with ships actually means. Now let's take a little break. Well, let's read one more. Well, no, we'll take a break and then we'll come back to the Bible show. Welcome back. Excuse me. Welcome back to the Bible show on evolutionpop.com. I'm your host, Jeff Hudson. Today's lesson is into Egypt again with ships. You can read that in Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. Go back and listen to the first half of the show, and we give you an explanation of what happened to the Israelites and who they are, and what the title into Egypt again with ships means going back into bondage. This time you're going to be taking on slave ships to get back into bondage. And what people did that happen to, we know, is the people that are called Negroes. Those are your Israelites. Let's keep going here. We are going to go to 1 John chapter 3. Now, the Lord said in Deuteronomy 28, keep my commandments and you'll get these blessings. Don't keep my commandments and you'll get the curses. So let's find out if the Israelites kept the commandments and got the blessings or didn't keep them and got the curses. We already know they got the curses, right? So what are the well, let's start off with defining what sin is first. Because if you go against what the commandments say, that's actually what sin is. Sin is going against whatever God tells you to do. Being disobedient, that's sin. Let's read it. Let's go to 1 John chapter 3. The book of 1 John, not the Gospel John. I don't know why it's called Gospel, but anyway. The whole book is a Gospel. But 1 John chapter 3, one verse 4, what is sin? Verse 4, whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law. Transgresseth the law. What law are they talking about? The commandments. Anything that God tells you to do or don't do. Continuing. For sin is the transgression of the law. The transgress means to go against or to not do. So that's what sin is. And the children of Israelites, they went against God's word. They didn't keep the commandments. They worshiped other gods. They committed sin, and the Lord punished them for it. And he told them in Deuteronomy 28 that these are the curses going to happen to you if you don't keep my commandments. And the curses happened to them. And we're living proof of it. Now, let's go to Judges chapter 10. Did the Israelites keep the commandments to get the blessings, or did they sin and get the curses? Well, they sinned. Let's go to Judges. You're going to read a few. You can read this throughout read the whole book of Judges, and you'll see that the Israelites, they They kept the commandments for a while, then they went against him. They got put into, somebody came and captured them. They got out of it, and they back and forth until the Lord had enough. Judges chapter 10, verse 10. He's going to read one verse. He's going to see if the children of Israel kept the commandments and got the blessings, or didn't keep them and got the curses. Let's see what they say. Judges chapter 10, verse 10. And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, saying, we have sinned against thee. This is back in Judges, they said they have sinned. We know they sinned after coming out of Egypt, when the first commandment that the first two commandments that the Lord told them was, have no God before me, and don't make any graven images. Now, after they got out of Egypt for just a hot minute, Moses went back to talk to God. The first thing they did, made some other golden calf gods, bowed down to them. They just got out of the land. God just gave them the commandments. He spoke to them on Mount Sinai in the flame of fire, right? They were all terrified. And they go right and do this. Judges 10 and 10 once more. And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, saying, we have sinned against thee, both because we have forsaken our God and also served Baalim, which means they serve some pagan god. Let's go to the book of Psalms. Psalm 106, verse 6 and 7. Verse 6. We have sinned with our fathers. We have committed iniquity. We have done wickedly. So the children of Israel are admitting it already. Verse 7. Our fathers understood not thy wonders in Egypt. They remembered not the multitude of thy mercies. They provoked him at the sea, even at the Red Sea. So they sinned right off the bat. Daniel chapter 9. Daniel chapter 9. Verse 4. Daniel chapter 9, verse 4. So we already found out that the children of Israel sinned, right? So they're going to get the curses. Daniel chapter 9, verse 4. This is Daniel. And I prayed unto the Lord my God, and made my confession, and said, O Lord, the great and dreadful God, keeping the covenant and mercy to them that love him, and to them that keep his commandments. So how do you love God? Keep his commandments. Verse 5. We have sinned. There it is again. This is in Daniel. We have sinned and have committed iniquity, and have done wickedly, and have rebelled, even by departing from thy precepts and from thy judgments. They went away from God's laws and statutes and judgments and commandments. Verse 6. Neither have we hearkened unto thy servants the prophets, which spake in thy name to our kings, our princes, and our fathers, and to all the people of the land. So they didn't do what the prophets were telling them to do. The prophets are talking for God. Let's skip down to verse 8. Verse 8. 8 through 8, then we're going to skip down to verse 10. O Lord, to us belongeth confusion of face, to our kings, to our princes, and to our fathers, because we have sinned against thee. Israelites say they have sinned. Verse 10. Neither have we obeyed the voice of the Lord our God. Like I said, sin is if you are disobedient to God. That's what sin is. Anything God tells you to do and you don't do it, that's a sin. Neither have we obeyed the voice of the Lord our God to walk in his laws, which he set before us by his servants the prophets. Yea, all Israel have transgressed thy law. All Israel have transgressed thy law, even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. There it is again, disobedient. Therefore the curse is poured upon us. Say they got the curses. Daniel was in captivity. You know they got the curses. Therefore the curse is poured upon us, and the oath that is written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, because we have sinned against him. He's going back to what the God was saying in Deuteronomy. If you don't keep my commandments, you're going to get these curses. And he said, therefore the curse is poured upon them. So people that are saying, oh, I'm blessed, I'm blessed, I'm blessed. Are you sure? Did you read the second half where you get the curses if you don't obey? Are you sure you're not cursed? Verse 12. Verse 12. We're going to read through 14. And he hath confirmed his words which he spake against us. God confirmed his words. And against our judges that judged us, by bringing upon us a great evil. The curses are a great evil. For under the whole heaven have not been done as hath been done unto Jerusalem. It must have been terrible. Verse 13, as it is written in the law of Moses, all this evil is come upon us, yet made we not our prayer before the Lord our God, that we might turn from our iniquities and understand thy truth. Even today, are we turning from our iniquities and even trying to keep the commandments of God? Or do we have this false image in our head of what we think is the right thing? This is what the scripture actually says. The Bible shows, we're going to read right from the Bible. This is what it says. It's telling you what to do to get out from under these curses. Be obedient to God. Keep the commandment. Start by just keeping the Sabbath day. Just start there. And that'll get you on the right track. And as you keep going to Sabbath class, you learn more of what the book actually says what to do. And you start keeping the commandments. And you get out from under these curses that are upon us. Will we obey? Verse 14. Therefore hath the Lord watched upon the evil and brought it upon us. Who brought the evil upon us? The Lord brought the evil upon us. And brought it upon us. For the Lord our God is righteous in all his works which he doeth. For we obeyed not his voice. So there it is. We know that the Israelites sinned. We know that the Israelites got the curses. And we know that the Israelites wound up going back into Egypt again on ships. And there they are still. They've never gone back to the land of Israel. Let's go to the book of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 42. Isaiah chapter 42. Read the book of Isaiah. It's deep. We're going to read a couple of verses, verses 18 and 19. Isaiah 42, verse 18. Hear, ye deaf, and look, ye blind, that ye may see. Who is blind but my servant? This is God talking through the mouth of Isaiah. Who is blind but my servant? Who's God's servant? The Israelites. Who is deaf as my messenger? Who's God's messenger? The Israelites. God is sending the Israelites to give his message to the rest of the world. That's what the chosen part is for. You were chosen to do this. Be a priest of God and teach the other people. Are the Israelites doing that? You got a zeal. Israelites have a zeal of God, but no knowledge. So they do what the pastor says to do. They don't do what the book says to do. That's 19 again. Who is blind but my servant, or deaf as my messenger that I sent? Who is blind as he that is perfect, and blind as the Lord's servant? So if you think you know everything, you're perfect. You think you see straight, you think you hear everything, there's nothing else for you to learn. Your cup is full, you're perfect. So you're not going to learn anything else. You're not going to listen to what the truth actually is. You got your image in your head, and that's what you're sticking with. You got to open up. Listen to what the book says, not what anybody else says. Read it for yourself. What does the book actually say? Let's go to the Psalms again. Psalms 135. You got one verse. The book of Psalm 135. And we're going to read verse 4. Who are these Israelites? Who are Israelites to the Lord? Right? Psalm 135, verse 4. For the Lord hath chosen Jacob unto himself. Now Jacob is Israel, the whole people of Israel. And Israel for his peculiar treasure. Let's read that again. For the Lord hath chosen Jacob unto himself, and Israel for his peculiar treasure. So the Israelites are a peculiar treasure to the Lord. That's who the Israelites are supposed to be. A peculiar treasure to the Lord. Let's go to Exodus chapter 19. What kind of peculiar treasure? Exodus chapter 19, verse 5 and 6. Exodus 19, verse 5 and 6. Who are these Israelites? What is this people supposed to be? What is this peculiar treasure? Exodus 19 and 5. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, this is the Lord talking again, to the Israelites, and keep my covenant, he's telling you what to do, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me. So you're not just a peculiar treasure. You got to do what he says to become that peculiar treasure. What's a treasure? Something valuable. Were you going to curse something that's valuable to you? It's not valuable to you anymore. If they're not doing what you're supposed to, that you're telling them to do, then what? You're not the treasure. Let's start that over again. Verse 5. Exodus 19:5. Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people. For all the earth is mine. So God is telling his people, these Israelites, do what I tell you to do, and you'll be blessed above any other people on the entire earth. You'll be on top of it all. Now you know that these Israelites didn't keep it. So who's not on top of the world? Who's not running nothing? All right, those are the Israelites. Verse 6. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests. That's what the Israelites are supposed to be, a kingdom of priests. And a holy nation. The Israelites are supposed to be a holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. You see what Israel is supposed to be? See what Israel is supposed to be. Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 2. 1 Peter. We're almost done. We got a few more. We got some, we got like a little bit of internet stuff to do too. But Israelite, I mean, 1 Peter chapter 2. 1 Peter chapter 2. We're going to read one verse, verse 9. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. But ye are a chosen generation. This is Peter talking to the Israelites. Ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, an holy nation, a peculiar people. There it is again, peculiar treasure, peculiar people. That ye should show forth the praises of him who have called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. So that's who the Israelites are supposed to be. Teachers to the rest of the world of God's word. We're supposed to be examples to everybody else. We're examples to everybody, all right? Good or bad, we're some kind of example, right? Of what to be or what not to be. Okay, let's go to Isaiah. Back to Isaiah 42, verse 18. We're going to read 18 through 25. Hear ye deaf, and look ye blind, that ye may see. Here's again, right? Who is blind but my servant, or deaf as my messenger that I sent? Who is blind as he that is perfect, and blind as the Lord's servant? We read this before. Let's keep going. Seeing many things, but thou observest not. Opening the ears, but he heareth not. And you see, but you don't see. You hear, but you don't hear. 21. The Lord is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. The Israelites are a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. They are hid in prison houses. Now, who's hid in prison houses? What people is hid in prison houses? Those are the Israelites. They are all of them snared in holes. They are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none saith restore. You're not getting restored nothing. 23. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for a spoil? Jacob and Israel is the Israelites, and Israel to the robbers. Did not the Lord? So it was the Lord that put the curses on Israel. That's why they're in prison houses. Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned? For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. So you got the curses. Deuteronomy 28 says, keep my commandments, you get the blessings. You don't keep them, you get the curses. We read where Israel even admitted that they sinned multiple times, and they got the curses. The curses that they were taken into captivity, put on ships, and dispersed and sold to the rest of the world, to the rest of the nations. Those are the Israelites, according to the Bible. 25. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, 25. Therefore, he hath poured upon him, God poured upon the Israelites, the fury of his anger and the strength of battle. And it hath set him on fire round about. The Israelites are set on fire round about. Yet he knew that, don't even know it. And it burns him, Israelites being burned up. Yet He laid it not to heart. Don't even think about it. We don't even think about it. We just walk through the streets. I'm going to get this money. Not even thinking about who we are. I think it's starting to come together. There's an awakening coming on. It's like people are waking up to this. The Israelites are finding out who they really are. Let's go to the book of Joel. Joel chapter 3. Joel. The book of Joel. You got Daniel, Hosea, Joel. Chapter 3. We're going to read 1 through 3. And then we're going to get to some internet stuff. Just one quick thing I found on the internet. And I'll give you some references to some other stuff too. But Joel chapter 3, 1 through 3. Excuse me. For behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. Now this is the Lord talking about when he's going to gather Israelite back together as a nation again. Not all spread out over the world, sold into bondmen and bondwomen. No, the Lord's going to bring us back together. Not back to the Egypt again, the ships coming out of that slavery. This is when the Lord's going to do the gathering. Now, the people that are currently in Israel right now, did the Lord gather them in 1947, 1948? Did the Lord gather them together? Or whether the United Nations gave them some land? Let's read Joel chapter 3 and verse 1 again. For behold, in those days and that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them for my people. Who's this people? The Israelites. And for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. So not only were the Israelites scattered among the nations, but the land that the Israelites used to have has been parted up and everybody else is taking it. Doesn't belong to Israelites anymore. It's gone. Doesn't belong to Israelites anymore, not the true Israelites. Verse 3. And they have cast lots for my people. Cast lots for my people. That means they bid it for them, right? Got on the block and they bid it for you. And have given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine. It's like, okay, I ain't got no money. Here, take this boy and give me that harlot. Or I don't got no money. Take this girl and give me that bottle of wine. Who did that happen to? And they have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. Those are your Israelites. That's who that happened to, the Israelites. Now, let's read a little bit of I went to this website, The Perfect Man. Well, that's not the. It's like perfectman.org. Perfectman.org. www.perfectman.org. All right. And I looked up Negro land. That's right. Negro land. Who are the Negroes? They had a land called Negro land. All right, let's read this real quick. You can go to the website, theperfectman.org. Look up Judah in Africa. Judah in Africa, okay? And I'm going to read it here. Yeah. The Atlantic slave trade, or the transatlantic slave trade, took place across the Atlantic Ocean from the 16th to the 19th century. The vast majority of slaves transported to the New World, Western Hemisphere, according to written history, were not native Africans from the central, western, and eastern parts of the continent. Wait a minute. They were not the natives of the African central, western, and eastern parts of the continent. So who were they then? In fact, these people have been historically proven to be descendants of early Hebrews who migrated from Arabia, Egypt, Israel, and Ethiopia into West Africa. That's who these people are. They're not the children of Ham. When Israel was destroyed in 70 AD, these people fled, the ones that didn't get captured, they fled into the Western Africa. And there they settled in what was called Negro land. But that whole territory, a guy made a map in 1747 called Negro land. And that's where the Europeans came and got the slaves. And it was the Africans of those nations there that captured those people that were in Negro land and sold them to the Europeans. And they were put on slave ships and sent to the Americas and all the rest of the world too. Look it up. Let's keep going here. These people were attacked and sold by native African tribes and Muslims to European slave traders, who then transported them to North, South, and Central America, not just North America, North, South, and Central America, and the islands, including the islands. To further prove this statement, I, the person, the perfectman.org, whoever that owns his website is the author of perfectman.org, have obtained written records of Arab and Muslim writers and also medieval African maps written in the 17th century by the conquering Europeans. The maps show geographical locations of Hebrew cities and kingdoms that were later taken into slavery. So this map shows like these where the Negroes were and where now they were taken into slavery. These parts were taken into slavery. One of the medieval African maps is called Negro Land. It displays Negro land and adjacent countries, including Upper Guinea. It also shows principal European settlements and distinguishings by Eamon Bowen, 1747, West Africa. Now I got a picture of it. You probably can't see it that well. I'll hold it up here. This is the map that I got of Negro land. All right, so that's where over here. You know how Africa comes down like that? All right, and then you go the Ivory Coast and all that's down there, right? Well, right up in here is Negro land. And I got to kind of highlight it there if you can see it. But go to that website. Go to that website and look it up. You'll see Negro land. This is a 1747 map by Eric Bowman. I think it's Eric Bowman. But look it up. Negro land. It's a map that was made. And this is where they got the slaves from. All around this coast up here. Check it out. All right. Now, let's continue. Let's go back to the Bible. I just wanted to read that to you. Let's go back to the Bible, and let's talk about the people that are calling themselves Jews. Now, this lesson. I'm not trying to talk about anybody. Anybody that's a follower of God can be a spiritual Israelite, right? You don't have to be an Israelite in the natural flesh to get into the kingdom of heaven. But you got to keep his commandments, laws, and statutes, and keep the faith of Jesus Christ. So let's go to Revelation chapter 2. Revelation chapter 2. And we're going to pick it up at verse 8. You're going to read 8, 9, and then skip down to 11. Revelation chapter 2, verse 8. And unto the angel of the church of Smyrna write, these things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. Now this is Jesus. These things say Jesus. Verse 9. I know thy works. He's talking to the spiritual Israelites, people that are keeping his commandments and have the faith of Jesus Christ. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not. Wait a minute. There's the people that say they are Jews but are not, according to Jesus here, but are the synagogue of Satan. Now this is Jesus talking. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Let's get down to verse 11. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. So get some understanding of what this book is talking about. All right. Don't just go what traditional man has put out there. Do some research and find out who is really who. All right. Let's go to Revelation chapter 3. Revelation chapter 3, let's pick it up at verse 7. We're going to read 7 through 13. 7 through 13, verse 7. Revelation chapter 3, verse 7. And to the angel of the church of Philadelphia write, these things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, he that openeth and no man shutteth, and shutteth and no man openeth. This is Jesus again. These things saith Jesus. Verse 8. I know thy works. He's talking to the Israelites again. I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it, for thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Verse 9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Now, this is Jesus again. What did he say? Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, but are not, but do lie. So who is Jesus talking about? What people call themselves Jews and go to synagogues. This is what the book says. What the book says. This is Jesus talking in the book of Revelation. It's verse 10. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. So you got to be spiritual Israel. You got to keep these commandments and the faith of Jesus Christ to get into this kingdom. Because the Lord is going to try the whole world on this. Hold on to it. Verse 11. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. Hold on what you learn. Learn some more and hold on to what you got. Don't let it go and go back to your old ways. Because you surely get the second death then. All right. Verse 12. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out, and I will write upon him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God, and I will write upon him my new name. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith to the churches. So you better get some understanding what he's talking about here. Get some understanding what he's talking about. All right, we got a couple more. Romans chapter 3. Now, why is it important to find out who the true Israelites are? It was like, well, it doesn't matter. All I got to do is keep the commandments and keep the faith of Jesus Christ. Well, it's true to find out who the Israelites really are, because those are the people that have the true word. Romans chapter 3. Romans chapter 3. We're going to read 1 through 4. Romans chapter 3, verses 1 through 4, verse 1. This is Paul talking to the Romans. What advantage then hath the Jew, or what profit is there of circumcision? So what's the big deal? What's the big deal of being a Jew? Verse 2. Much every way, Paul says, chiefly because that unto them were committed the oracles of God. So who has the oracles of God? This people that got cursed. Those are the people that have the oracles of God. Verse 3. For what if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of God without effect? So you go and tell people who these Israelites really are. They're like, you're out of your mind, right? They don't believe. Is that going to change what God says? No. Believe it or believe. This is what the book says. We're reading what the scripture says, not what anybody else says. What does God say? That's what you hold on to. Verse 4. Well, let's read 3 again. We're going to go right into 4. For what if some did not believe? Shall their unbelief make the faith of God without effect? God forbid. Yea, let God be true, but every man a liar. As it is written, that thou mightest be justified in thy sayings and mightest overcome when thou art judged. Everyone's got to get judged. One more scripture. Let's go to John chapter 4. Let's hear what Jesus has to say about this people, these Jews, these Israelites. John chapter 4, I'm going to read one verse. John chapter 4, verse 22. John chapter 4, verse 22. This is Jesus. This is Jesus when he's talking to the woman at the well in Samaria. What does he say here? John chapter 4, verse 22. Ye worship, ye know not what. He's talking to the woman. Ye worship, ye know not what. We know what we worship. Jesus says we, the true Israelites, we know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. So this Christianity doctrine, that's what it is. Not these other religions out here, not this Baptist, Episcopalian, Catholic, none of that. What does the Bible say? What's the doctrine of the Bible? That is the oracles that God gave to the Jews. Salvation is of the Jews. Who are the Jews? Those people that were cursed. They have the oracles of God. So, read your Bible. Keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus Christ. I hope the lesson was edifying. Hope you have a better understanding of who the true Israelites really are. Like I said before, we're not trying to talk bad about anybody else. This is not about disrespecting anybody, any other people, any other nation. We're trying to figure out who the true Israelites really are. Who's got the oracles, who's got the who really has the salvation coming to them. Who were these curses put on? Really? No, this is secret. We're truth seeking here, and we're going by what the Bible actually says. And his history plays it out too. We read one thing. There's another website. It's called blackhistoryinthebible.com. Blackhistoryinthebible.com. I recommend going and checking it out. Some videos on there. It might be interesting. Blackhistoryinthebible.com. Also, some Bible Christian Sabbath Day church websites you can go to. thehouseofjacob.org, of course, for the House of Jacob. theisraelofgod.com for the Israel of God. ThyKingdomCome7.com, that is the Church of Jesus, Israel, the Church of Jesus. Israel'sChurch.org, that's Israel's Church of the Living God. And COIChicago.com, that's for the Church of Israel. Go check out those websites. They're in the notes. And once again, read your Bible, keep the commandments of God, keep the faith of Jesus Christ. Until next week, God willing, hope I have another lesson for you. We can learn some more stuff. I learned some stuff on my way doing all the research for this. So hey, I enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it too. Thank you for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, peace. And watch out for the COVID and 5G and all this stuff that's out there. People are not wearing masks as much as they used to. And the social gatherings kind of coming down. But hey, I'm still out there. I don't think they're telling us the whole truth. But hey, be safe, all right? Peace.